good morning, YouTube viewers. Good morning, Facebook Nation. Good morning to everyone, all people, all colors, all races, all languages around the world. Good morning to everyone. Before we start, click like, subscribe, share the playlist. A lot of various topics, things that we go through on a daily basis, and another way of looking at things. So that's what this channel is about, that we work on us, that we take care of us before we can take care of other people. And part of taking care of us is understanding ourselves. And if we understand ourselves, we understand how we work within the bigger picture. So I understand the last video that I had posted, I had went to Facebook. So I wrote something on Facebook to say, come and look at this. However, it was twofold, because one, it proved me right, and then two, it proved me right. So the first is of being right in what I said in my last video is that, when you call people out that you're fast to run to what's bad, even though, a person is positive. It's almost like a woman who was promiscuous, who slept around when she was in high school. And, she gets married and has kids, has a family, and years go by, and she comes back to her high school reunion, and the word in the reunion is the things that she did when she was in high school. So you're not allowing this person to go on to live a better life, even though they are going on to live a better life. And this is a form of enslavement. So what this video is, from the things, because I faced over the past week, I faced harassment, vandalism, just different experiences. A lot of it had to do with hate, so hate is an easy thing to do. But from that, I drew this. So you know that I like 3-part series, so now you got another 3-part series. So today's topic is the war on humans, and this is part 1, which is history, and part 2 is going to be ideology, and part 3 is going to be enslavement. So now you see what we're going to be talking about, where I just gave you that parable of the woman, and how she was in it. Even though she's lived a better life, she's still held accountable for something she did when she was a kid. So these are the things that we do, but that's a different topic. So today we're going to find out how history, how these things play in. So history plays in, and I wrote this quote. So let me read off this quote that I wrote. This is the quote for today, and we're gonna get into how history plays a part, a role in each one of us. That each one of us has a role in what is going on in the world around us. So when a war is over, the reality is the war has just begun, and that's Dennis Crosby. And what this means is, we try to separate ourselves into groups, religions. We're always forming groups. That's just a part of human nature and who we are. But those groups and those circles can be manipulated. And this is what, people like me, we talk about these things, because it helps us to see these things so that we can be better people if we see these things and how they're being played out. So throughout history, countries have always been at war, and that's another thing. I'm coming to kind of a conclusion that everyone on the face of this earth knows exactly what I'm talking about. They know these things that are going on, but we're choosing to put these blinders on to say, we wish it away, but we can't, because child sex slave trafficking is real. Women being killed in third world countries, those things are real. Black men, women, and children around the world being killed, these things are real. So we can go into so many different areas and we can be blind. Corporations, they'll sell a drug and addict 1 million people, billions of people addicted to these drugs, and we put blinders on. We put these separations between us. But a lot of this has to do with war. So how history, any country that goes into another country and they invade this country, the first thing that they do, and this is how the war begins, the first thing that they do is they remove the history, they remove the culture. And we can see that, a lot of what's going on in the countries around us, they're not fighting the Taliban and all these different organizations that they mentioned. They're not fighting. They're fighting amongst one another for religious purposes. But then there's a higher purpose where they're going to both join together, and that's to fight democracy from going into these countries. Because with democracy comes everything else. So, we need to understand as people what that word means and how it affects people around the world. Because today we see how it affects us here. That people feel, hey, and we wave the flag. But if that flag doesn't stand for all, who does it stand for? So this is all that flag stands for: democracy. And if we're not true to what this flag is, or if we put conditions on this flag, then is it really democracy? So these are the, idiocracies that we face as humans. We have to make sense out of things that make no sense whatsoever. And we suffer from this. So, I just want to give you a perfect example of this because, we spend so much time on looking at, the world being 5,000 to 6,000 years old. But it is not true. It's just not true. And it can be proven. But yet and still, we'll go to school, we'll send, our children to school to learn that, the Egyptians, they started mummification. So we're not even talking about American history. Let's go outside of it to see how these things have been changed. They'll talk about, Egypt being the first, the pyramids, that they were, technologically advanced. And mummification was, the thing that they hang their hat on to say, hey, look, this is how intelligent we are. But in fact, that's a straight out lie. It's a straight out lie. As a matter of fact, in Libya is the first mummies, the oldest mummies, and they're black. They're black men, women, and children who were mummified 1,000 years before Egypt even thought about mummification. And let's go one step deeper. So now we say, well, Egypt's had some of the most technical hieroglyphs, and they're the hieroglyphs as well as the writing and the record keeping. Well, underneath the Sahara Desert, 10,000 years before Egypt even thought about writing in these pyramids or writing on their walls, excuse me. These things were done by people within the Sahara Desert in the land of Kemet and a few other lands that were they were populated. So they had millions of people. Underneath that desert is a whole civilization that outdates Egypt. But the thing about it is that for us here in America, our scientists won't go to those places. So you have to look outside the box, and this is what I do. I look outside the box. And right now, Italy is doing some of the most major work inside the Sahara Desert, digging up hieroglyphs, digging up, mummified bodies that 10,000s of years. So, these practices were all done over a long span of time. But when someone goes into a land to invade, they take all this information. They know what the past is. And this is the upper 1% of the people that are in this world that's basically running it. So, when it comes to mankind, we have to realize that, if you look back on wars, you find that the 1% enrich both sides. And we find that here, where you have Me Too, you have LGBTQ, you have Black Lives Matter, but then you have Proud Boys, you have Antifa, you have so many different organizations, the Klan, and it's the same people giving money to both sides. But yet and still we walk with blinders on, so we use our history, we wipe out our history, and then we allow the people to feel that, they're free. So now let's talk about when the real war starts. The real war starts when once these lands are free, or they've been, delivered, and, now we've protected you, you're free. Now the propaganda begins. Now we instill our history, or the narrative that we want you to have. So that's what brings me back to the ending part of this, is that, all people know about it. They know that these things exist. But when you speak about it out loud, it's like, oh, we have to shy from you. Like, I guess it's like Big Brother watching. So if I say it, or if I agree with it, but you have to look at the things that happen within your life. If you're in a bad relationship, at what point do you say no more? If you're on a bad job, at what point do you say no more? If you're being mistreated by your family or your friends, at what point do you say no more? So you see, we can say no more inside these individual bubbles and stand up. But when it comes to standing up for all the greater good, we tend to shy away, and not all. And I like to say not my viewers, because the viewers who are loyal to me and loyal to the message, I see that you're watching the videos and you continue. So it was the other people that really weren't in it for something positive. They were looking for things to tear down. And that's why here I always deal with facts. And this is why you always see the comment section is shut. Because if you give me a question, I'll research it. If it takes me a week, if it takes me a month, I will research it. Because I want to know the truth. And if this is the truth that you believe, I want that truth to be based on fact and not just an opinion. But we run on opinions. So, just the history, that you look at a place that, all different cultures that have taken credit for things that they did not do. A lot of these civilizations walked into, these big places that are ancient. The one group of people around the world that we have to give credit to, that they were honest enough to put in their ancient writings that they found the Mayan Empire. They didn't build it, they found it. But yet and still there's a disconnect, because when I was taught in school, they still taught that Mayans had built this, and children today are learning that Mayans have still built this. So it takes away from civilizations like the Olmec, where the Olmec, they say, well, these giant skulls, that they were created and they were made by kings because there was no writings around them. Which brings me back to Libya, which ends in Libya, or the Sahara Desert. Within the Sahara Desert right now that they're digging up, they found hieroglyphs, older, rock carvings, older, and that at one time they were so old from Egypt that these things, the paint, most of the paint is gone from these things. So this is 10,000 years before the hieroglyphs went up in Egypt. So, when we accept, the reason that most don't want to accept what is taking place today is because if we accept this as being true, then what does that do for our religion? What does it do for the belief system? We will all go, it will be chaos because we're living a lie. You know what I mean? And now we have to start over to say, hey, everything that you said is wrong. So that means that mankind has been here and been here and been here. So the flood is not such a great story when you look back that civilizations have been here and recreated themselves. But we have to start with the truth, and the truth starts in you. So, when we understand what is true, instead of putting blinders on, we have to say, hey, no more. I'm not following you on this, and this is what the facts say. This is what your opinion says. And it works the same way within the family, because I remember one time I was explaining to my mother about this flood story, and what they have in the Bible, that these two things were the same. And I got anger from her. Like, don't go outside the Bible. Stay in the Bible. That's from my mother. Stay inside the box with you. Inside of, what it is that, there's other stories that are far older, but the same stories are in that book, and I can't question it. And this is what we do with religion. We block that door off, and then we say, stay within this book. Anything outside, don't look at it. But what's outside, there's more evidence that proves that this information is correct than what we have actually in front of us. And this is what the fear is, because I saw it coming directly from somebody that I love, mouth, to say, don't educate yourself, keep yourself uneducated in this book. So, hopefully everyone got something out of that. And like I said, for the things that I experienced, especially the social media bullying, it shows that I'm still here. I'm still standing, because I want you to stand. I stand with you, and we're not going to let people bring us down because they want to keep us trapped inside of a box, and they don't want us to work together, all people, to come together. They want separation because separation is profitable. Let's look at the big picture, that we are all suffering in one way or another. And it's going to take all of us to come together to stop the suffering. So, with that, everybody, Stay tuned for part two. It should be possibly tomorrow or the next day. Part two is going to be on ideology, how ideologies are formed and how our ideologies are targeted. So sometimes we think that ideology is meant for only one person or one group of people, but in actuality, again, which we will end in part three, it's a part of enslavement for all races. So with that, everyone, have a beautiful day. You know, stay dry. It's warm here on the East Coast, and for all the people that are overseas, thank you for standing by my voice. For all the people on Facebook that stands by my voice, thank you very much. And as well as YouTube, which YouTube, you came from the very, very start. So for all of you YouTube viewers, Facebook Nation, people around the world, all colors, all languages, men, women, children, have the most beautiful day. Have the most wonderful day. And remember, be the best person that you can be. And with that, everyone, peace and blessings.